Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is a paper pieced block. It's called Bright Star, and the block is 6 inches. Here's the diagram. We have 5 different patches. We start with A1 in the center, A2, A3, 4, and 5. Here are 16 blocks put together. You'll need 4 blocks at least to make one of these diamonds. So I've given you instructions for doing 4 blocks at a time. Here is the large quilt, 60 by 84, and it has 140 of the 6-inch blocks. So here are the patches. Patch A1 is, we cut 10 inches by 4.5 inches. We'll need 4 patches of the background fabric, and this is the large section here in the center. For patches A2 and A3, we cut 9 inches by 4.5 inches. We'll need 4 patches each of the background and the accent fabric. We're going to cut 2 rectangles from each fabric. Stack the rectangles right side up, then cut them in half diagonally as shown. And you have to pay careful attention to which angle you cut these. So be sure to cut them this way. And for patches A4 and A5, we're going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to cut them diagonally in the other direction. Same thing, everything else is the same. Here are the instructions for 140 blocks if you want to make this quilt. And you'll cut strips and then cut them into segments. Do the same thing here. Then you'll stack them and cut them diagonally just like you did up here. Here are the patches, or the fabrics we're going to use. This is the background fabric, and this is A1. This is A2 and A3. We have 2 different accent fabrics and 2 pieces for the background. And the same thing with here, only I've got 2 different accent fabrics than this. And then the background. So we'll put this to the side. These are A1. And we'll take these and stack them. You don't have to be totally precise with these because it is paper piecing. So we're cutting these to use for our paper piecing sections. Now this is A2 and A3. The angle is cut from the upper left to the lower right. And we'll take our ruler. This barely fits on there, but it's good enough. Upper left to lower right, and then cut. We're going to put these separate like this. Put the accent fabrics together, and then put the background fabrics together. So we should have 4 background and 4 accent. And we're going to do exactly the same thing with A4 and A5. Stack these up. And this one we're going to cut from the lower left to the upper right. And so these will be going this way. So we have A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5. Also included in your instructions is page 2, which is the foundation paper piecing pattern. The top says, set your printer to print actual size, and this is important. The outer square should measure 6.5 inches. So this outer square, which is the cut line, from here to here is 6.5 inches. So let me show you what happens when you don't choose actual size when you print. This is one I did, and I can put it over this piece of paper. It fits exactly in the 6.5 inch side. So this one was printed actual size. The first one I did, I forgot to do that. So I put it, if I put this piece on here, We're lined up here at the bottom and the right-hand side, and you see there's a whole bunch of space we're missing. So this is a smaller block. If you forget to print actual size, and you print them all this size, you'll just have a smaller quilt because these are smaller. Now I'm going to show you how to paper piece. And if you've not paper pieced before, I call this my road map. It's printed on this side. This is the back side of the block. The right side will be here once we're finished. And what I find it easy to do, you can barely see through the lines on the other side. If you need to get a light box or use a window or something, I always take my ruler and I'm marking the lines on the other side. This is the outer line, this is the stitching line, and then these are the stitching lines as well. Marking all of these on the back. Once you are familiar with doing paper piecing, you probably don't have to do this, but this will be a good demo. And let's see, let's mark these lines. And I'm not being really precise, I just want an idea of where these lines are. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to add that when you have this printed, trim about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch away from the outside line. Then you'll have enough to trim off later. That makes it easier to work with. And that's what I've done here. I've trimmed about 1/4 of an inch outside the thin outer line. And then here's what it looks like with the lines traced on the back of the paper. And you'll see how we use this in just a minute. We'll start with our A1 patch, and we're going to place this wrong side up. Because remember, this is the wrong side of our block. What we're looking at is all of the area for A1. So that's between here, this line, and in these lines. You want to make sure that all of those lines are covered by the fabric on the bottom. And you can see that it fits within that fabric. I take my glue stick, and section 1 is the only section that you glue like this. Flip this over and just put some glue on here, and then place it back on here on the fabric and just glue it down. If we look at this, I call this my road map, and we always start on section 1, so this is section A1. We want to go to section 2. In order to get from A1 to A2, we have to go over this line. So we know this is going to be our first stitching line. Take the ruler, lay it against this line, and we're going to fold the paper up at a 90-degree angle, like that, and then move the ruler and then fold it all the way down. And then we take our 1/4 of an inch, this 1/4 of an inch line, and we're going to line it up on this fold line and trim this off. What we've done here is we've added a 1/4 of an inch all the way down here to get ready to sew the next piece on. Now here's where the marking comes in place. You see this is marked here, and this is going to be my A2 right here. If you flip this over, you'll see this is A2. So we need to make sure that all of this area inside A2 is covered by the next fabric we put down. So I'm going to take one of my A2 fabrics, which is the accent fabric, and we always put the straight line perpendicular to us and away from us. So I'm laying it on this mat to show you. And then we look at this, and you can see that this shape from the A2 follows this shape of the accent fabric, and that's what we're putting on next. Now we're going to lift this up and place these edges even. So we're just lining up this top edge. Now we want to make sure that all of this area has fabric underneath it. So I'll put my finger here on this corner and pick this up and look. Pick up the fabric and the paper, and you see I have plenty of room back there. If I look this way, I have plenty of fabric there covering. And then up here, the same thing, plenty of fabric. If you're new to paper piecing, you might want to glue down this seam. And I just put a couple of dots of glue in about 2 areas and press it down with your fingers. So this fabric is not coming off. You know it's placed there correctly, and now we're going to sew it. You turn this around and flip the paper over. We want to see our line. This is what we're going to stitch. I'm going to start my stitching off of this line, 3 or 4 stitches, stitch on the line all the way down, and then stitch 3 or 4 stitches off of the line. You'll want to reduce your stitch length to make your stitches smaller. That will make it easier to tear the paper off later. Here's the stitching. Started off the line, stitched on the line, and ended off of the line. Now flip this over, and some people like to finger press like this. I like to actually press it with the iron. So I'm just going to do my finger pressing on this one. A1 is covered and A2 is covered. Now we want to cover A3, and to do that we have to go over this line. So we take our ruler, lay it against the line, fold it up 90 degrees, remove the ruler and fold it down. And you see here's our area now that we need to cover, this line here. We need to cover all of this area to include this seam allowance that's here. Put the 1/4 inch mark on the fold and trim. Trim all the way across. Now we'll take our A3, which is the background. Here's our shape. Take this, and the long side goes like this, perpendicular, and so does this. And we just place this on top, match the top edges. And I can see that I have enough fabric here. This is so small that I've got plenty. You can glue this down if you like, but you'll flip it over, go to your machine, and stitch the same way. You turn this over and press. Now look at your road map, and we've got A1, 2, and 3 is covered, so we need A4. And place your ruler, fold up 90 degrees, and fold all the way down. Put the 1/4 inch on the fold, trim, get our next piece. The long side goes along the line, and then we match our shapes, check, and now stitch. Our line is stitched between A1 and A4. Flip it over, press. Now we flip it back over, and our last line is between A4 and A5. Put the edge of the ruler on the line, fold up 90 degrees, and fold down. Put the 1/4 inch line on the fold and trim. Now we take our background fabric, match the shapes, and match the top edges, and stitch. The line between A4 and A5 is stitched. Flip it over, finger press, and now this block is done with the piecing. So I will take it to my ironing board and give it a really good press, and then we'll trim the edges. Now it's all pressed. It doesn't look like anything right now. So we turn it over. Now we're going to trim on the outer edge. I like to use the 1/4 inch line on my ruler again, and I line up the 1/4 inch line with this thick stitching line. To me, it's easier to line up this line with that than it is to line up the edge of this ruler with this line, the outer line, because you can get off a lot. If you lay the 1/4 inch along the line, it just disappears into the line. And now you trim this edge, paper and fabric. Turn it around and do the same thing. 1/4" line on thick stitching line, trim. And here's your paper pieced unit. So do all 4 of those, and then I'll show you how to put the block together. Some people like to leave the papers in as they are piecing the blocks together, but I prefer to take them out because I find it really difficult to take these little seam line or seam allowance pieces of paper out. So what I do, I turn it over. I start on one side and I put my finger near the stitching and tear it. And I'm going to tear against the stitching like this. Then that frees up the stitching here. And then do it again. And just keep taking the paper out that way. And if you have little pieces of paper left, it probably does not matter. But if you like to get every little bit out, then use tweezers or something to get it out. So go to all of your pieces and take the papers out. Now we're going to put the block together. And you have 2 different looks to these blocks. Now these are my test blocks that I did all the same. This is one way, where you get the big background star here. And if we make it go, if we do it this way, we have the star, the middle of the diamonds, and then this goes up here, and this goes here. So this is your other diamond like this. But you can see better in this picture the different diamonds. Here's the one diamond this way, and then 4 of these make the bigger diamond. So you really need 16 blocks before you get the good picture of it. Now to stitch these together, I'm going to stitch them this way. Just flip them over. You'll want to stack these seams so they will meet at the same spot. And since it's paper pieced, it's real easy to do that. So just stitch your 1/4 inch, press your seams open, and then put your blocks together that way. And here's what 4 blocks look like together. One way you can put them together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.